This happened years ago, back when I was working the night shift at a convenience store inside a mall. I had been on the job for a few months, and until then, nothing unusual had ever happened. It was just another routine night. Quiet, predictable. That changed when two teenagers started hanging out at the store. I was cleaning a nearby table and couldn't help but overhear their conversation. They were speaking loudly, not caring who might be listening. They were talking about witchcraft, bragging about having rare books that couldn't be bought locally. I chuckled to myself, thinking they were just trying to sound mysterious, wannabe witches, really. Then, one of them pulled out a small glass bottle. According to him, it contained a special potion. He claimed that just a few drops of it could attract spirits. His friend looked at him in awe, completely buying into the story. It was obvious they were trying to impress anyone within earshot, especially the women nearby. Later, while I was manning the counter, I heard a loud crash. I looked over and saw that they had dropped the bottle. It shattered on the floor, scattering broken glass everywhere. One of them apologized repeatedly and offered to clean it up. But the one who had been telling the story just stood there, pale and frozen, like he'd seen something terrifying. Before I could say anything, one of them suddenly ran off. The other followed after another quick apology. I sighed and grabbed the mop. But when I went to clean up the mess, I noticed something strange. There was no liquid on the floor. The bottle was supposed to be full, but there wasn't even a trace of it left. No wet spots, no smell. It was like it had vanished into thin air. That was the night everything changed. Not long after, my coworker, let's call him Sam, had an encounter. It was early morning, around 9 a.m., after the usual rush of joggers had passed. He was tidying up when he noticed a man kneeling in the middle of the store. Sam didn't see his face at first, so he walked over thinking the man needed help. But as he got closer, he froze. The man was unnaturally pale, and his eyes were pitch black. He turned his head slowly and said, "Where is it? I want to live again. Give it to me." Sam ran out of the store in a panic and nearly quit on the spot. But management brushed it off, saying he must have been imagining things. Then it was my turn. It was another night shift, and I was with Sam again. We were outside the store taking a break. I noticed a strange smell like barbecue mixed with something foul, almost like burning hair. Sam smelled it too. We rushed back inside, thinking something was on fire, but everything looked normal. Sam checked the back room while I looked around the office. Nothing. But the smell lingered, making me feel sick. As I turned to call out to Sam, I stopped dead in my tracks. In the middle of the store were three burned figures, human-like. Charred black, they were facing each other at one of the tables. I blinked, stunned. Then I ran back into the office and locked the door. When Sam returned, he found me shaking inside. I told him what I saw, and we both agreed something was terribly wrong. It didn't stop there. Another night, I was returning from a smoke break when I saw her. A woman in a long white dress. From far away, something felt off. I couldn't move. She was floating, her feet weren't even touching the ground. She slowly drifted away from the store, and I breathed a sigh of relief. But then, from behind me, I heard faint crying, and a man's voice whispering words I couldn't understand. I turned around. She was there, the woman in white. I don't remember what happened next. I must have fainted, because the next thing I knew, my coworker was shaking me awake. He said he found me lying on the ground, pale and cold. That was the breaking point. The store didn't just feel haunted, it was haunted. More and more employees began experiencing things too. Whispers, shadows, sudden drops in temperature. Sam and I couldn't take it anymore. We both resigned shortly after. Whatever was in that bottle, they weren't lying. It really did have the power to attract something, not just spirits, souls. Uncle Jordan. The story I want to share is about my uncle, Uncle Jordan. I can say that he's a kind and generous man. He used to have a good job working as a cook on a ship. But if there's one flaw he has, it's that he's a little too generous. Sometimes to the point of being reckless with money. I've seen him spend thousands just to hand out cash to street children because he felt sorry for them. There's nothing wrong with helping others, of course, but the money could have gone towards something more practical, like buying a cell phone for his own child, my cousin. When he realized he had spent some of the money that was supposed to be for the phone, he asked me to go with him to town to withdraw more. The bank he used was quite far from where we lived. Even the way we met up was a bit of a splurge. We met at a 7-Eleven. He got there before I did, and when I arrived, he was already eating a sandwich and drinking a Coke. When he saw me, he smiled and told me to grab whatever I wanted. He'd pay for it. I was too shy to say no, but also too shy to get anything expensive, so I just picked a biscuit and a bottle of water. Meanwhile, I watched my generous uncle wandering through the aisles picking up snacks and chocolates. I could only shake my head. There he was, spending again. After a while, he came over to check on me. "Are you okay with just that?" he asked. "Go ahead, get more if you want." I politely declined. When it came time to pay, the total bill was over 1,000 pesos. He had picked up large bags of snacks and imported chocolates. I leaned over and whispered to him, "You could have saved a lot if we just went to the supermarket." But he just smiled and said, "These aren't for me. They're for the 2 brothers behind me." I looked around and asked, "What brothers?" Uncle Jordan turned and pointed beside him, but there was no one there. As the cashier finished bagging the items, he took them and carefully handed them to the air, like he was passing them to someone. He kept looking around, asking, "Where are they?" He even turned to the cashier and asked, "Did 2 young boys just leave the store?" The cashier looked confused. "No, sir," she said. "No kids have come in or out since your nephew arrived." The night the ice cream didn't melt. I was 16 when a 7-Eleven opened in our neighborhood. Urban legends about convenience stores weren't really a thing back then. What was popular was the Funday cone. I don't know why, but eating one made us feel rich and sophisticated. It was like our version of a cornetto. We'd hang out at 7-Eleven, savoring our cones like we were in some fancy cafe. That particular branch became our high school version of Starbucks. We'd lounge around, laugh too loudly, and sometimes get complaints for being a bit too rowdy. One unforgettable event made that 7-Eleven branch infamous. The night it supposedly got haunted. I was there when it happened. I had arranged to meet my dance practice partner there, and I arrived first. As usual, I grabbed a Funday cone and hung around, waiting. Then I started hearing something odd. The cashier kept saying, "I just put it out. It's only been 5 minutes." Over and over again. Her tone stayed calm, but her face, she looked irritated, like someone was really pushing her buttons. Then another employee, her coworker, chimed in, "Just give it to him. If it's cold, then sorry." Seconds later, the front door slammed shut so violently it felt like it might shatter. Another customer and I were stunned. We had both seen it happen. The cashier screamed like she was scolding someone, which confused us even more. Who was she talking to? Her words were angry, loud, full of curses. The manager rushed out from the back. "Why are you yelling?" she asked. "Who are you yelling at?" The cashier explained. A man had been pestering her about a hot dog sandwich, asking over and over if it was ready, even though she had just set it out. When her coworker suggested giving it to him cold, the man supposedly lost his temper, slammed the door, and stormed off. We should have laughed, and honestly, we did, a little. But when we told the cashier and her coworker that no one else had been in the store, their faces went pale, completely drained of color. From that night on, the ghost stories began to spread. People started reporting sightings of a man in a suit who hangs around the store. Whether he's the same one the employees saw that night, we don't know. But ever since then, 7-Eleven didn't feel quite the same. The old woman who never left. I used to work as a crew member at a 7-Eleven, and I'll be honest, the ghost stories you've heard about that place, they're true. Now, I can't speak for other branches, but the one I worked at definitely had something. Some say it's because the store sits on a corner near a cemetery. After funerals, people often pass by our branch for one last stop, maybe to shake off bad energy. Whatever the reasons, strange things happen there. I've seen chairs move when no one's around, especially during inventory shifts when the store is quiet. It almost felt like someone or something was helping us count. Sometimes whole racks of snacks would fall as if someone had pushed them. Not 1 or 2 bags, entire shelves of chips crashing down. These things didn't happen in the middle of the day. No, it was always during the quietest hours, late at night or just before dawn. But the scariest thing that ever happened? An old woman walked into the store and never came out. It was around 2:30 in the morning during the Christmas season. The air conditioning was already cold, but that night it felt freezing. My coworker had stepped outside for a bit, and I was inside alone counting the register. The front door opened. An elderly woman walked in all by herself. She wore a long, faded housecoat and had a scarf over her head. She didn't say a word, just made her way straight to the drinks section at the back. I didn't think much of it and kept doing the nightly count. A few minutes later, I heard the door open again. It was my shift replacement arriving. More customers came in after that, just a few here and there. But something started to nag at me. I never saw the old woman leave. Worried, I asked my coworker if he'd seen an older woman walk out, thin, short, wearing a scarf and beige coat. He looked confused and said no. He hadn't seen any elderly customers at all since coming back in. That's when I told him she came in while he was outside. He shook his head. Impossible, he said. I was right by the door. No one went in. Now I was panicking. I searched the entire store, every aisle, the back stockroom, even behind the counter. She was gone, vanished. My coworker just laughed and joked that maybe I was being haunted. But I couldn't shake the feeling, like someone was still behind me, watching. We never saw the old woman again. But eerie things kept happening in that branch until the day I left. And I'll never forget her, because even now I sometimes wonder if she ever really left. The boy who found his mother. This happened back when I was still in school. I was a working student then, so I often stayed out late. Most nights, I'd stop by 7-Eleven to grab something to eat before heading home. My go-to order? Their chili con carne hot dog sandwich. I was obsessed with it. Because I was there so often, I got close to one of the crew members. Let's just call her Mara. One night, a young boy walked into the store. He looked about 6 or 7 years old and asked, "Have you seen my mom?" Naturally, we wanted to help, but every time we tried to approach him, he would dart away, no crying, no shouting, just a quick turn and run. It happened again the next night, and again the night after that. It was strange, sure, but nothing could have prepared us for what happened next. That night, Mara and I were just chatting behind the counter, fangirling over Lee Min-ho from Boys Over Flowers. Suddenly, the little boy walked in again. But this time, he didn't say a word. He didn't even look at us. He just turned toward the corner of the store and softly said, "Mom, you're here." Mara and I followed his gaze. And then, we froze. In that dimly lit corner, there was a woman floating, yes, floating, with her back turned to us. She wasn't moving. She wasn't facing us. She was just there. I panicked. I literally climbed up onto the counter to hide. I didn't care if Mara's supervisor scolded us later. Survival mode kicked in. Mara jumped up with me, and we just hugged each other with our eyes shut tight. We only dared to open them again when we heard the door chime and realized a customer had come in. That's when we glanced back toward the corner. The boy and the woman were gone. The customer gave us a weird look, probably thought we'd just seen a miracle. But in that moment, all I knew was that I was never going back to that store again. Looking back, I'm sure now, that child we kept seeing, he wasn't lost. He was already gone. And that night, he finally found his mother.